Hello and welcome to another Beardy David video. Now, it's my reading wrap up for January and February. I cannot believe we are in March already. And so, because I'm still not fully hugely confident on me talking about books, because sometimes I struggle getting my words out like I do in a lot of my movie reviews, and sometimes I just kind of forget. Especially when you read 5 books in 2 months, which is exactly what I've done. I'm absolutely over the moon with what I've done in these first 2 months. Like, it's far exceeded my expectation. I thought maybe I might read 3 at maximum. I never in my wildest dreams thought I would get through 5 books in my first 2 months. So I am buzzing. My target for the year was 13 books. So I'm not too far off of being like halfway already, and we're only we're only now just coming into March. It's amazing. So this is going to be my little book journal of the year. It's got a little moustache on it, which is very, very cute, and it's all like velvety and nice. So let's see some of the books that I've read this month. 2021 books that I've read. Number 1, To Be a Gay Man by Will Young. And this, I actually listened to this as an audio book. Now, this is a non-fiction. This is all about Will's life and how he come to accept that he was a gay man, and how he now actually feels really proud that he's a gay man. And let's just kind of have a little jot through some of my points, just so I don't ramble on too much. So I kind of put here that he feels happy that he's proud to be a gay man, which is great. It really come across like in the book, and I always feel like it's important for somebody like me to understand more about the LGBTQ plus community, and so it's always interesting and be able to just to understand more about what people have to go through. And it's just awful that people have to go through all of this, and that, you know, I mean, it's been said millions of times, but just why can't coming out as gay just not even be said, you know, not even be told that, you know, as I've seen in a movie, Love, Simon, which I'm going to talk about in my upcoming films that I've watched over the month. You would never just sit there and say, Mum, Dad, I'm straight, and then expect them to react over it. So why should you on this one? Sometimes it almost didn't feel like I was reading a biography. It actually felt like I was reading a bit of a self-help book. And I definitely think I've learned from it, a couple of things that I've learned to look at myself in a different way, which I feel really appreciative of, and it's always good to learn a bit more about yourself. And then the last point about the book is that I just find it a real talent where somebody's writing style is such full of sadness, and you're on the verge of crying, that all of a sudden you're laughing, and it just kind of completely turns your attitude around. It's just a wonderful skill, that, and Will has that in abundance. Oh, and I gave that 3 stars, by the way. I'm documenting it all on Goodreads, so if you want to follow me on Goodreads, there's a link down below that you can come and see how I'm getting on in real time. Then next up was Quite by Claudia Winkleman. This was another audio book and another non-fiction, and I also gave this 3 stars. Now, I am a huge fan of Claudia Winkleman, and I do feel like, especially listening to it via an audiobook, because she also narrates it, is that I think if you're not a fan of Claudia Winkleman, I don't know how much you're going to get out of this book. I definitely think you need to be either not aware of her and wanting to learn more, or already being a huge fan of her, like Lauren and I am. Because it's just very, she reads it out in her own Claudia way, which is hilarious. And I definitely feel like this isn't, I don't think it was billed as a biography, because it definitely feels more like a memoir. Although she talks about her life growing up and stuff, it's more like an aspect way of her life than an actual growing up and his day 1, day 2. And it was a much more fun way, especially coming from her, to approach it than your normal biography. And being a big fan of Strictly, I was loving all of the Strictly Come Dancing chapters. That was really cool. And what I took the most from those chapters was that Ed Balls, who has been a contestant on Strictly Come Dancing, I always thought he seems like a really nice bloke. I really hope he is in real life. And Claudia Winkleman confirms that and saying that Ed Balls is absolutely a wonderful human being. And he was on a BBC cooking competition just recently, and he was lovely on that. And it just goes to confirm that Ed Balls is a wonderful person and human being, which is what I really wanted to know. I was laughing throughout all of this book. I really find Claudia's comments relatable, and her writing style is just spot on for me, and I don't think I'll stop smiling throughout. It was really, really fun. And then next up we've got like another autobiography / memoir, and that is the hilarious Adam Buxton in Ramble Book, which was another audio book, and I gave this 4 stars, another non-fiction. I am a massive fan of Adam Buxton. I listen to his podcast regularly, like the Adam Buxton podcast, and I used to watch the Adam and Joe show when I was growing up. I don't think I understood it much back then because I was quite young, but I still used to watch it and probably pretend that I found it funnier than I actually did. And basically, this audiobook feels like a long, like 6-8 hour podcast, and in no way is that a bad thing. The man is so funny, and I really, really find his comedy like my cup of tea. And what I like throughout the whole book is that every now and again he'll interrupt with a ramble, which I think is the emphasis of the title of the book. And depending on what depending on what subject he's talking about, his ramble will delve more into that just a little bit, and it will make like a little robot noise to come in and out of each ramble. What was interesting to hear about this book was the relationship of his father. I didn't realise he had such an up and down relationship with him. I know he speaks about his father on the podcast quite a lot, but he doesn't necessarily go into a huge amount of detail. So it was really nice to hear about some of the great times that he had with his dad, and as well as like quite sad to hear about some of the not so fun times that he had with him. The absolute highlight for me though was every time he was talking about his school days, especially when he was mentioning Joe Cornish, like his BFF, and his other BFF, Louis Theroux. It sounds like them three had an absolute great time together, like coming up with all of these movies and songs, and it really sounds like just the most fun way to grow up. Like I had a very like fun childhood growing up, and I had some great mates throughout school. But I can't say I ever sat there and made rap songs, and that would have been quite good fun. So overall, it was just a really funny, touching, silly audiobook from Adam, and I loved it. And as I said, it just felt like a really long podcast. And I've actually written down here 10-hour podcast, not 6 or 8 hours. It was longer than that. See, that's how much I loved it. It flew by. It only felt like 6 to 8 hours instead of 10. So number 4 was Ready Player 2 by Ernest Cline. This was a physical book that I read. This is my first fiction book of the year, and I gave it 2 stars. Oh dear. As you all know, I was very much looking forward to reading Ready Player 2. I had already read, not like any spoilers about the book, but I hadn't read many positive reviews, and unfortunately they were pretty much confirmed. I mean, the first 100 pages was like world building and was all unnecessary. It's because why do you need to tell us about a world that we already know about? You know, you've already established how the Oasis works in Ready Player One. We don't really need the first third of the book to go into detail about how the world works. It's like, we already know. Like, you can skip past all of that. It just doesn't need to be retold. Another issue was too much detail. There is far too much detail that goes into some of these like Oasis worlds that is necessary. I mean, I don't think this is giving anything away, but one of the quests that they go on, they have to go to a world that is associated with the artist formerly known as Prince. And literally 2.5 chapters is describing the Prince world and like some of the buildings and some of the meanings to the buildings. Like, we don't need to know that. If it's going to be part of the story, then sure, tell us. But if it's not, then no need to. Like, sure, maybe like dedicate a couple of pages to what the actual Prince world looks like and its associations to Prince. But you do not need 2.5 chapters of Wade and H running around going, oh, look at this, oh, look at that, oh, look at it, and then it had no bearing on the story whatsoever. It was just really frustrating to read, and at times it was very boring. Talking about the quests, even when the quests like kind of build up and get going, it just stops, and it just feels really like rubbish. Like, especially one of them, I remember like when it's talking about a battle. As I said, I won't give any spoilers away, but they're talking about a battle, and one chapter is like the build up to this battle, and it's like, yeah, we're all getting ready, we're all getting all geared up for this battle, and then the end result for the battle is about half a page long, like the actual battle in part of it. It's like, what? why did I just read all of them pages, you building up to the battle, and then the battle being like this tiny segment in the book? Like, I want more details about the battle. Like, that sounds like more fun than listening to people like putting all their armour and shields and swords on. I also definitely don't feel like Wade is the same Wade that we get from Ready Player One. Like, sure, in the book he is now a trillionaire and he's now like a CEO of Oasis, but yeah, he just doesn't feel like the same Wade. It's a bit odd. It almost kind of feels like Wade, and just the general story itself was more fan fiction than actual like Ernest Cline's writing. Not quite sure. Like, all I can say is, like, for a wrap up of the book, is that I hope that the movie will be better than the book. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. I think we've still got a few years to wait for the film, but we'll just have to wait and see on that one. And then last up was The Lying Room by Nikki French. This was another audiobook I listened to, and another fiction book, and I gave it 3 stars. Now, this was really cool, fun, and fast-paced, and I did enjoy it. This is the first crime thriller like that I've read in a long time. I think the last kind of one that I read resembling that was like a Harlan Coben book from years and years and years ago. So the basis of the book is Neve, like, she's got a family, she's got like a loving husband and kids, but she's having an affair, and then she goes to the apartment to meet up with the person she's having an affair with, and he's dead. But not only is he dead, it looks like he's been murdered. And as it says on the book, she doesn't call the police. She pretty much clears up the murder scene herself and tries to hide it, even though she has nothing to do with it. But she knows that if she phones the police, then her family's going to find out about the affair. And it turns out that the person she's having an affair with works at her same company, and then it just kind of snowballs from there, and it gets worse and worse and worse for her and everyone around her until it builds up to the big finale. Yeah, this was really, really good fun, and I really enjoyed the Neve character. And I've got to say, at some parts, like, maybe, I don't know if it was just because it was an audiobook and I was actually listening to her describe it, but sometimes Neve, like, there's a lot of things going on in her mind that she tells us all about. But as she was, like, listing them, it kind of made me feel a bit anxious. And I was like, oh, God. I remember the first time that she started describing, like, all of the things that are, like, you know, making her feel awful. I was out having a walk along the beach, and I was like, bloody hell, this is making me feel all like hot and sweaty. I'm not a fan of this. I'm assuming that must mean it's playing a pretty big part of me, and I'm getting used to all of this reading malarkey. So throughout the book, there's a sergeant who's investigating the murder. I can't remember his officer name, but I know his first name was Alistair, and he was weird and creepy, and he was just always there at the right time that he needed to be there. And yeah, I wasn't a fan of him. And I definitely felt like he was like quite attracted to Neve, and that when he was there, he was only there for her and not actually to help solve the crime. Yeah, it was kind of weird. I wasn't a huge fan of him. What I will say is that although the build up to like the big finale and the whodunit was revealed, I found that a little bit disappointing. I definitely found that the build up was more fun. Yeah, the reveal didn't really live up to the hype. And the person who it was kind of like I don't really know why it was that person, and I felt a little bit cheated by it. So yeah, that was a bit of a disappointing factor to it. But overall, like, disregarding that part, and that was only like the last chapter. Everything else before that was great, and I'm definitely going to be reading more Nikki French books in the future. And then somebody did tell me, as well as Lauren, is that Nikki French is in fact a husband and wife, like, author partnership duo who writes all of these books, and that's really cool. I like that. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be reading some more Nikki French's in the future. So there we go. I have read a grand total of 5 books so far, and I'm absolutely over the moon about it. Now, next week will be my next TBR. The reason it's not coming out just quite yet is that because I'm currently doing my Marvel March, like a movie fun thing. I've got plenty of things that are related to that. And then next, I've got my what I watched in February video coming out soon. So be sure to tune in and have a look at that if you're interested in not only what I've been reading, but what I've been watching. So yeah, there we go. I could tell you what, I've got a busy month of videos throughout March, so it's going to be quite full on. But yes, so I should stop talking and I should start editing and thinking about the next video. So as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.